22nd of April 2024. I almost said 2023. Again. That's not what we're looking for. Here it is. Wrong side. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. We're in Canada. In Canada, you're going to have to use a 1. Hope everybody had a great day. Except for the nuclear industry, of course. We hope you tripped and broke your bloody necks. Here's the future. Robots cleaning up Earth long after we're all gone. You're going to have to pick up around 600 trillion one-ton bags from all the radioactive weapons testing and everything else. So here's what every city, every street in Japan should look like. It's insane. The whole story is insane. And the nuclear industry is out there saying they're the savior. We're the savior. We're coming to save you. And it was 100% corruption, yeah? The universities, the media, it's 100% corruption. And remember the story last night? Fukushima car wash struggles with radioactive sludge. Oh, it's much worse than radioactive sludge. The sludge tanks at the car wash facilities in the regions have sludge building up in their septic systems since 2011 at almost 60,000 atoms per kilogram, which means it's nuclear waste. You need a nuclear specialist to come in and clean up the car wash. Because the whole country is one big stupid slave to the nuclear industry. And now the whole planet is, of course. And what's even more crazier is the nuclear industry is out there saying that you can't have solutions for a future without nuclear. Nuclear is destroying all 8 million species, not just humans. But every single community, every single street in Japan should look like that right there. And you might not understand it, and they're hoping you don't. But that's, the evidence now is, it's unassailable. Japan takes South Korea to the World Trade Organization over Fukushima food ban. So South Korea banned food from the nuclear wasteland, appropriately, because they picked up 30 million one-ton bags, right? And 3% of the land. So Japan filed in 2015 a World Trade, and they won the complaint. So South Korea now officially was going to have to take food from a nuclear wasteland. Think about how evil Japan's got to be to go ahead and do something like that. And then you can start to understand how evil this industry actually is. And so South Korea appealed it. It took a couple of years. And then, of course, South Korea won. For some reason, common sense ruled. It was a rare occasion where common sense actually ruled. But all you had to do was take the World Trade Organization down to Fukushima and show them some of the 150,000 sites of one-ton bags. Now, we got around 1,000 pictures, real pictures of the one-ton bags, which means there's 149,000 pictures we don't have. And so when you see these types of pictures, this is what I'm trying to do is give you an insight of the 149,000 pictures we have never seen. Japan takes South Korea to the World Trade Organization. And the Japanese government, if that's what you want to call them, sadistic demons, argument has been that food produced under the country's intervention limits for radiation contamination, and there is no intervention limits. They're allegedly looking for cesium, so they're purposely not looking for plutonium, curium, and 1,000 other fission products. And of course, they're not looking for cesium, because that'll derail everything they're doing if they find any. Food products not tested are routinely exported. They're just doing spot testing. They're not actually testing, though. and we've been covering this since Fukushima happened. We've been covering it for almost a decade before Fukushima. When Fukushima happened, we started doing research expeditions from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska for 4 to 5 months a year. And say in 2014, we confirmed this was an extinction event. Species were wiped out in the tidal zones. And this wasn't just Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. It has to be the entire Pacific. And what we've done was study the tidal zones and the insects and the other species, but we couldn't find them. It was a total extinction event. An ongoing testing in Taiwan has shown food items that contain radioactive contamination are showing up in other countries, with some of them over to Japan's own intervention limits. So they ship radioactive food to another country. The country tests it for cesium, but they're not testing it for uranium or plutonium or americium or curium or neptunium or strontium or any of the daughters, 1,000 different fission products you got to test for. They're only looking at cesium, and so obviously they're not going to look for cesium. Because if they find it as baked news, and then that sends the nuclear industry into a tailspin. And the nuclear industry is way too precious and fragile for anybody to criticize. And it really is a coward industry. And if you ever and we cover some of these gatherings of the pro-nuclear community, and they're literally like kindergarten children running around, bumping into each other, totally lost. Once their mommies drop them off at the nuclear conventions, right, they're like a bunch of kindergarten children. And so then after they get out of the conventions, their mommies and daddies will pick them up and, hey kiddies, how was the nuclear convention today? And nuclear scientists are all bubbly. Well, there was nuclear protesters. It was terrible. They reminded us of how evil we are. What kind of scumbags we actually are. Experimental zellulite. Experimental. After 80 years, you got no solutions. Experimental. Zero-light rice paddy project in Date City, which is a nuclear wasteland. So, it's the strangest story. You got decades and decades and decades and decades of nuclear, and you haven't come up with any solutions. Nothing. You haven't even tried. An experimental project to determine if spraying zero-light and potassium onto rice fields will aid in the prevention of cesium absorption. You're in a nuclear wasteland, and the only thing you're worried about is cesium. Do you got any idea? I don't know how to equate it because it's so bizarre, so batshit crazy. Okay, let's put it this way. You're going to take, you got 3 children. You got 2 girls and a boy, or 2 boys and a girl. And they're going to school, and you get to school, and the principal shows you around the school, and there's rifles, and there's handguns, and there's machetes, and there's big beer traps set all over the place, and there's hand grenades, and there's fucking missiles. There's all kinds of weapons everywhere, and you got all these little kindergartners running around going, what? And so you're like, well, what are you doing? And you say, well, we're going to remove the pocket knives. Oh, and teach, the parents are going, well, okay, that's good. As long as you remove the pocket knives, my kid can come to school here. Everything will be safe, right? Because, it's hard for the average person to comprehend. There's a latency, typically, with radiation poisoning, but it's going to show up. And it's going to be brutal for the rest of the child's life. So it's literally the equivalent of sending the child to a school full of weapons, and when the parents complain, they say, well, look, we're going to take all the pocket knives out, so therefore the children will be safe, and the parents will be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because, if you just look for cesium and you don't look for the other stuff, then you're a criminal. You're a scumbag criminal on top of that. And there should be documentaries on how evil you actually are. It's that egregious. It's that disproportionate. So, like, there's 149,000 pictures missing, and they look like this. So we made up these pictures to try to mimic. If you picked up all the radiation just in Fukushima Prefecture, it would look worse than this. So cesium. The zero light is intended to absorb the cesium and the potassium. This is the craziest fucking story imaginable. To provide the plants with a safe source of mineral to uptake. So, like, the disconnect is unbelievable. So, like, say you got a bowl of rice. Now you're going to mix in spiders and ants, and you're going to mix in scorpions. You're going to mix in black widow spiders. You're going to mix in ticks and all kinds of other things. And you're going to feed it to the children. And the parents are like, oh, this is crazy. You say, okay, well, we're going to take all the rice here. That'll just leave the insects so the children will be safe. You're like, oh, okay. That's great. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you for being reasonable. That's what the nuclear industry is doing. You got 1,000 other fission products, and they're looking for cesium. And to suggest that if you add potassium, that'll displace the cesium is truly the most batshit statement imaginable. And we've seen this same rhetoric from Chernobyl, by the way. It's insane to suggest that this had any redeeming qualities or benefits whatsoever. It's insane. It's mind-blowingly insane. And it's criminally insane. It's criminally liability too. And that everybody that eats food from Japan should sue the importers and should sue Japan for poisoning them. Because if you're only looking for cesium, you're not looking for the other 99% of the poison. Like, I can't understand how the world sits in silence. I can't wrap my mind around this. And so I can't understand how a story can show up and that the world doesn't freak out and at least mock the nuclear industry for something so ludicrous, for something so criminal. The future generation might get it. Like the current ones that are here regularly, they get it. Oh yeah, well, let's get a whole bunch of people in paper suits. First off, paper suits ain't going to protect you from radiation. It pulses energy 600 feet, say, every second. If you got a single atom. Imagine if you got 100,000 atoms per kilogram in each of these 1-ton bags. The idea being is that if the potassium is there, and the plants may take that in rather than the cesium. And I noticed they never put their names on these stories because they don't want their children or loved ones to find out how retarded and monstrous and evil they actually are. This is murder on a scale we've never seen before. We've never even heard tell of before. It's infinitely worse than a nuclear attack because you poison all 8 million species and the future of humanity. And like if you were to take this food and you were to take the people who wrote the story and invite them over for a birthday party, and then you tell them that the children are eating food from this field, they'll punch you in the face and they'll grab their child and run away screaming because they know it's not safe. And they would make their child throw it up and they would take them to the hospital and get their stomachs pumped because it's not safe. And how can we as a species evolve if we're going to let them do something like this to us? How does that actually work? How can anybody look themselves in the mirror thinking this is okay? How can anybody that thinks this is okay in the government or universities or academic communities, that it's okay to lie to everybody and come out with an absolutely criminal story like this? The harm is so real. you're talking about. Suggesting that if you put, and we've heard this crackery, this kooky narrative since Chernobyl. We've been listening to these narratives. It simply doesn't work that way. There's no science to validate these types of assertions whatsoever. Yeah, no, the rice is okay. Everything's in the bag, Dana. Don't worry about it. By the way, the bag's only meant to last for about 2 years. And when it rains, it washes right through the bags and washes the radiation back into the water table. But, like, they're only picking up 3% of the land in Fukushima Prefecture where they're going to move people back to. Not 3% of the prefecture, but 3% of the land where they want people to move back to so they can pretend nuclear has a few redeeming qualities. And so when you see these pictures, we're trying to conjure up to 149,000 pictures that are missing, because there's 150,000 sites that would look similar to this. 30 million one-ton bags that they picked up that we know about. That's not counting the stuff they burnt, the billions of tons that they burnt incinerated by grinding it up and trucking it right across the entire country and burning it in the cities' incinerators. And these incinerators have to be shut down because the employees are having 2 and 3 employees having a heart attack on the same day. Total coincidence, of course. Got nothing to do with the fact you're burning nuclear waste from a nuclear wasteland. And that every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. So everybody on the planet should be gone to war against this industry. Everybody. You shouldn't be able to buy a baseball bat anywhere on the planet because people want to get hold of a nuclear scientist and show them what for. And whenever I talk about this stuff, what I find interesting is there's never anybody watching my video. They all go away. If there's 25 or 30 people watching the video, it'll dip right down to 15, 16, 17 when I start talking about this stuff. It's really interesting, isn't it? Japan has 30 million one-ton bags of Fukushima nuclear fallout. 30 million one-ton bags. So imagine you got to go right on every one of those bags that Dana is wrong. That's your job. You got to do nothing else for the rest of your life. Just write on 30 million one-ton bags. And your child, you're going to raise them up and teach them to write, and that's going to be their job. You don't have to teach them anything else. Their job is going to be to write on one-ton bags. And they're going to raise their children to do the same thing. They're going to raise their children to do the same thing. And they're going to raise their children to do the same thing. Because that's how long it's going to take to write on 30 million one-ton bags that Dana is wrong. Of radiation fallout that they picked up, which is only a fraction of a percent of what should be picked up. But it's something tangible. Right? 30 million one-ton bags, 150,000 sites like this is tangible. I'm hoping and dreaming, I know I'm dreaming, that this will break through the lexicon in this planet and we'll have a conversation about it. Government funds will assist the program, and both local government officials and farmers, morons/farmers, will cooperate in the project. Oh, wow, you're going to put potassium in the field, I'll get rid of radiation. That's wonderful. I can't wait to feed it to my kids. 30 million one-ton bags, and every nuclear power plant on the planet is surrounded by farms, except for just a handful, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9 plants. They're usually in cities, right? And all nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation into the ecosystem from the fuel pools, which are where they're putting reactor cores with no containment and they're splitting atoms. And experimental. And so that's a link, is spraying zero latent potassium. Spraying it. It's not experimental, it's stupid. It's idiotic. So they're going to spray this zero light and potassium, and that's going to displace the radiation. When you go to the source, they're always gone. They always remove the pages. Because the whole story was just meant for here and now when they originally came out with the story, December 9, 2011, to manipulate a certain population where they were targeting. So they came with the story. The story showed up in the local media. The local media was like, this is great. But we're missing 149,000 pictures like this. We have around 1,000 pictures, real pictures like it. But we're missing 149,000 pictures. So me and my buddy, Artificial Intelligence, have been putting together relentlessly these pictures to try to articulate that we need to get our act together. We like, you're worried about tin cans, pop bottles, and plastic in the environmental movement. You need to add some of this, an experimental project. See, radiation fallout, you can't see it, right? If radiation fallout had a radiation symbol on it, the world would probably still be too stupid to know. Oh, that's so pretty looking. So pretty deadly looking. A fire at Nami nuclear waste site. And look at the firemen down there. Jeez. Do you see it? They're at a nuclear waste site. Look at the firemen. Stood there spraying a nuclear waste site with smoke, radioactive smoke. Like, this is going to be a heavy radioactive smoke. Look at the firemen there. I'm a fireman, that's what I am. I'm a fireman, I can't think on my own. I'm a fireman. How many firemen does it take to put out a radioactive dump? Fire at a nuclear waste site. Oh, hey, George, we need another hose over there where all that smoke is to put out that bad boy over there. I'm going to have to get a few volunteers to go in there and find some hot spots and put them out. It's like, oh my God. There's nightmares and then there's this. Look, that's not a nightmare. That's a friggin' disaster is what that actually is. That's a disaster on a level I can't articulate. That's probably the craziest picture I'm ever going to see. Right there. They're not nuclear experts. They're not nuclear scientists. They're not nuclear academics. They're firemen. Because firemen doesn't understand, right? Oh, honey, I won't be home for supper. I got to go down and put out a nuclear waste site. Let's hear some jokes in the comment section. Come on, let me hear it. Let's hear it, folks. Anybody got any jokes about this? Anybody? James Lucy says, proof the International Atomic Energy Agency is guilty. Richard said, brain damage from radiation is out of control in Japan. Well, it's not just Japan, it's the whole world. Dana Nasana says he's speechless. Don't worry, Dana. If you're speechless, what do you think I am? Bring in more radioactive to smother the fire. There you go. You can get a job in the nuclear industry. They're allowed to be knocking on your door. Red shirt. You want to make a few 100,000 on the side? Write some stories for us. Have we got any jokes? Anybody got any jokes? Well, there must be a few jokes out there. So how many of these are going to have heart attacks that day or the next morning? Like, I really can't comprehend that picture. I've seen a lot of batshit crazy lunatic shit in my time. But brother, that takes the cake. There's crazy. Bring in more radioactive soil to smother the fire. I actually like that one. It's pretty good shit. I can't get past the picture. I just can't get past that picture. Let me try it again. Let's go. Let's try our best. Here we go. Fire at Nami nuclear waste site. There's firemen there. Durka, durka, durka. La-di-da-di-da-di. Loose branches and dead grass are being prepared to load into the iconic black bags used for nuclear soil and debris storage, caught fire in Nami. This is not loose branches and dead grass. This is topsoil with a little bit of that stuff added in. But what the bags are is topsoil, a couple centimeters of topsoil, right? The fire burned for 5 hours before the firefighters were able to put it out. And all the firefighters got sick and died and sacrificed their lives. Cranny says it's okay to recycle water from the tanks that they're spraying. That's what they were. That was one of their cover stories, right? For many years, was that the reason they weren't filling the tanks up as quick as you might expect them, not that they're filling the tanks up at all, was because when the water goes through the ELP system, they're spraying it on the reactors. And we've probably covered 600-700 stories like that over the years. The fire can be seen in the ANN video burning in close proximity to the large piles of black bags. Large piles of black bags. Black 1-ton bags of radiation, right? Oh, there we go. We got James calling in for us. Oh, hello, James. How are you all, sir? I beat you to it. Oh, Sheila Machado. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to mention like how great the AI art is. Like,
pretty good, isn't it? Not bad.
It's not bad. No, I mean you can't get a graphic designer to do that. It costs you a fortune.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. You're 100% true.
And I can only imagine it's like how many people are doing that.
Yeah.
Like I've been messing around and it's great, but I just wanted to let you know something I kind of in the works of doing that I found with, because with the OpenAI, the ChatGPT Plus, it gives you the subscription, it gives you the ability to build your own GPT.
Oh, really?
Right? So
yeah.
They have the GPT builder. So what that lets you do essentially is kind of make your own kind of customized little world of information and how you want to train it to come up with responses. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna just push the button here. So I just downloaded all the NRC FOIA PDF and uploaded it to the GPT. So it's like, we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of page transcripts. So it's like, well, then once it's all in there,
it's in there.
The nuclear industry's got to be shitting their pants.
That's brilliant, actually. I love it. I love it, man. Go ahead, James. It's great.
It's like they can't hide from the truth. That's the thing I'm finding.
Oh, the nuclear industry is falling apart, right?
Well, right, but by simply asking it questions after it compiles all this, they think that, find something in all that material where, it kind of illustrates how the NRC was more concerned about the media perception than what the evidence was finding out. So it comes back and it's like, out of the out of 5 ground samples analyzed, plutonium was detected in 2 of them, and these levels were believed to be slightly above background levels, raising concerns of spread of contamination. So my aunt go more into that, and they're like, well, there were contrasting views on the implications of the plutonium found in the soil. The NRC noted that the levels were not necessarily surprising. It could be consistent with historical background levels from atmospheric nuclear testing.
Yeah.
This suggests that an effort to contextualize the findings within a broader historical and global backdrop of radio contamination. And it goes into there is evidence of downplaying. And it's like, well, isn't that interesting? Here we are, the very agencies that we, as the public, hope that are protecting our interests to survive in this crazy world, are more concerned about what Taylor Swift is perceiving. In the grand scheme of things, right? Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, and it's like, it's even funnier when I was throwing out the IAEA and how it comes back and it's like, it's like, this is kind of sensitive because they play a dual role of promoting nuclear energy and regulating it at the same time. How do you do that? You can't have an agency as a dual role. That never works. Why is it so apparent that this is all a sham?
Yeah, it'd be like the police officer arrests you, catches you in the crime, and then when you go to court, he's your lawyer. And so there's no way there's no defense no matter what.
Right, there's nothing you can do.
No.
You're screwed either way. And that's how it's set. So I think, I just wanted to chime in real quick and just really remind everybody that, hey, we've got such an invaluable tool set. Look what Dana's doing with just the art alone. I mean, this is something this is the worst nightmare. But there's not enough people to really seem to make a big. Like the other night, I'm watching something on YouTube where there's some kind of guy that he gambles in Las Vegas, right? So he's got 500,000 viewers, and he's doing this big party, and he's spinning. Every bet is $380, and it just lost. Yeah, and everyone's excited though, and then eventually he wins $500, and there's like 17,000 people watching it. And I can't believe it, right?
Yeah.
This is the attention. And they get all excited. They win a little bit of money, and then there's people donating money in the chat, like $2 super chat. It's like, oh, thank you for the super chat. Meanwhile, another $380 gone down the drain. Like, this is insanity. I mean, here we've got this destroyed mindset of the public, totally unaware that there's no crab at the buffet while they're gambling like that. It's just like the irony, right?
Yeah. Well, like it's what you call social engineering, right? And they know there's a lot of people out there that are susceptible to gambling or watching those types of videos. And so when this shows up and it's going live, YouTube algorithms will shoot that out to all of them. And it's the same thing here. Like when I'm going live, it'll put all this other stuff to distract people, and I won't show up anywhere. And people will be, listen, I don't know the right word to satisfy, but they'll be occupied with all the other stuff. And the majority, I believe strongly that the majority of the people, if they watch this stuff, they'll pick up an unbelievable amount of information. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them will actually, it'll go into their consciousness, and it might not register for a month or months or even a year or two, but it's there. And so all of a sudden something else will you know how that works, right? Something else will bring that back to the forefront. There'll be another story about a nuclear plant or a nuclear accident, and all this information will come right to the top of their. I don't know if that's true or not, of course, but I've seen it happen to myself, right, years ago. How your memory recalls certain things.
Right.
And
but what's so important too is that everything you have done, Dana, somehow at some future point in time, and the future's coming quick. I mean, what we're playing with right now with AI is it's just a distraction to what's upcoming. Right? There's going to be things coming right down the pipe that are going to blow everybody's mind. But keeping your material and thinking one day that we can add all of that in.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun.
Exactly, and it's going to be a permanent
addition,
a permanent record,
right. It's going to know. AI is going to know that the banana, potato chip, walk in the sunshine, and stuff like that is a lie. Right. Yeah, it's not going to be.
And your material is just such an added weight to all of that, and that's just all I just wanted to bring that up.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, I never thought about it. Right. So that's a great point. I guess I do.
And I'll keep you up with my progress because I take the Fukushima stories of the day and I throw them in. I have them analyze it. I'm like, hey, this story, like how you point out how they never put a name to the story.
That's right,
yeah. Press.
Yeah.
It finds that very curious.
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
Very deceptive.
It drives me nuts because when I read a story and I don't see a name, there's a reason, right? And, they're ashamed. They're ashamed of themselves, yeah.
They're afraid that somebody's going to call the news agency, like, well, who wrote the story? Like, I don't know. It doesn't say. Like, all right, please hold, and you're on hold for 5 hours.
And all the big pro-nuclear medias and like the World Nuclear News, and for instance, you'll never see a name under a story. There's all these big medias that write about nuclear. It's very rare, including in Japan, specifically in Japan. Because years ago, we used to beat the shit out of everybody who wrote the story. We used to mock them, right? And we used to say, well, this is great because we can add their names to the tag and their children will find it and eventually it'll come back to haunt them. Well, it wasn't that long after that they stopped adding the names to those stories in major medias in Japan. And then there was a few experiences like that where, I used to download pictures, and I downloaded this one picture of the Fukushima site. It must have been an accident to release the picture. It was very high quality, and I was able to zoom in on Reactor 3 and zoom in on Reactor 4 and get crystal clear pictures. And just from that one single picture, I was able to extrapolate an absurd amount of information that we still use to almost every single day to bludgeon the nuclear industry with. And now you can't download, right after that, you cannot download a single picture from a Japanese story. At least in my house anyway, right? That's not an accident. Yeah, that's not an accident.
No, not at all. No, I mean...
Because that was very powerful, yeah.
But it's funny because they need to understand that, if there's enough people out there really taking what they're producing and have it analyzed back. Now, for instance, the latest thing is, the TEPCO is going to release the 5th round. Well, how many, there's like these rounds, like booster shots or something, right? So it's like, there's a story. In the story, it's like, well, the Japanese government and TEPCO verified that the levels are safe for release. And it's like, well, wait a minute. TEPCO and Japan are the same thing.
Yeah.
That's like saying
they were nationalized. That's right.
Right. And so it comes back, and it's like, that's a really good point. That is absolutely right. And, that is deceptive, and it's like, these are the things that the media is doing, and it just helps to point these things out. So
it's important. It's important too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important
to do it.
Maybe
there can be a source that can be compiled software. Your data's all there. Everything Kevin Blanche has done is all there, and it's just this.
Yeah, just a couple of people can undermine the nuclear industry propaganda machine. Just a handful of us keeping after it.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And like,
they'd be so terrified by that, but there's no way. They've got to be freaking out. They better be, because this is what's going to happen. Is just trying to get people to realize, like, listen, nuclear energy.
We're in real trouble. Like, we're in real trouble. This planet is in real trouble, and it's because of the nuclear industry. But Fukushima was a tipping point. And so, like, the research expeditions that I've done, when I look at, I can never get that out of my mind. That haunts me. Like, I can't possibly articulate how much that haunts me. And that's the urgency, right? That's why I'm like I am,
It's absolutely haunting. I mean, Dana, you're on the boat, and you come across a dead bird floating in the sea with tumors all over its head.
Oh, it was, live streaming. Like, oh my God. Like, it was, and then we, like, it's hard to comprehend that the world is not awake yet. Because I know the world is going to wake up, right? It has no choice. It's got to wake up at some point. No matter what they do to us, the world has to wake up. It's simply.
Let me let you go, Dane. I just don't
that was great. That was great.
I
appreciate it, James.
All right.
Okay, my friend. Yeah. Okay, love you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you now. Yeah, boy. That was James Lucid, everybody, from the comments section. James. That was a great call. I love calls like that anyway, because it brings another perspective to the story. And if you go to James' site, you'll see some of the videos that he's created with artificial intelligence. It's insane, right, about Fukushima. It's actually incredible. And this was the very early on, too. Like, the videos were unbelievable. And so when TEPCO says that they're starting the 5th round of water release, which they're referring to August 24th, 2023 as the first release. This is day 6 of Fukushima. This is March the 16th and 17th. Picture of Reactor 3. And to suggest that nothing got out of this building, why do you think they're doing that? Why would they suggest that nothing got out? Why are they so adamant? And why is that narrative so widespread? Why is the International Atomic Energy, which is supposed to have credibility, promoting that particular narrative everywhere it goes? And it goes around promoting that narrative, that nothing got out of these buildings, everything is in the tanks. And the only thing that's in the tanks, they say, is tritium, so nothing got out of the buildings. But the building doesn't exist because the decades of reactor cores were at the top of the building in the worst conceivable place imaginable, and particularly for Japan, which has a 3,000-year legacy, archived legacy of tsunamis and earthquakes in that same area. Why would you build nuclear power plants when the continental plates are only 50 miles off your coastline? Why would you build it right there when you know the continental plates are going to do this? You know that's going to happen. And you know it's going to be for hundreds of miles. And then they have a 3,000-year history of don't live or build houses below the 300-foot level, because tsunamis are known to show up to that height. And why would you put all your reactor cores at the top of the buildings, where if you have an event in a reactor, you can never get 2 decades of reactor cores at the top of the buildings? Why would you do something like that? I wish upon a star. It's about the only reason, right? They wanted it to happen. And when it happened, they came up with all kinds of conspiracy theories to say that it couldn't happen. So it must have been done on purpose in order to salvage the reputation of the nuclear industry. And there was a lot of these players that infiltrated the lexicon of the consciousness of the movement at that time. And some of them are still hardcore today. And with me, I'm only going to look at, I can't talk about speculations, and I have no right to. I shouldn't do it because what we're doing is not a game. So I can only talk about what I know for sure and what I can back up with documentation, because I don't have a right to speculate. And if I do speculate, then it's very clear. I'll make it very, very, very clear, because it's so rare. I'll make it very clear that this is 100% of speculation. I'll overemphasize that, and then I'll come out with a small speculation. But generally, I don't need to speculate. I don't need to speculate. But I don't have 149,000 pictures that are missing of 1-ton bags, because there's 150,000 sites, and each site would look like this. And so I got artificial intelligence creating these pictures, and I'm up to around 1,400 or something now of these pictures, and I've only shown you guys 500 or something, 600 of the pictures. And so I got to start showing you more of these pictures. Because on a good day, I got no problem creating 200 or 300 if I try really hard. And some days I can't help myself. Can anybody read Japanese? Because you won't believe what those things says. I'm not going to say it out loud, but those vending machines are not selling what you think they're selling. Let's put it that way. But everything on the planet with a nuclear plant, within 1,000 miles of it, should look like this, because you can't contain the radiation. BWXT announces an $80 million investment for their fuel facility in Ontario, Cambridge, Canada. Now, we've covered these monsters many, many times. These are actual monsters, and they're making a fuel for the CANDU reactors here in Canada. And then the CANDU reactors are the most polluting things conceivable. So there's 149,000 pictures missing. And so I got artificial intelligence conjuring up appropriate pictures. And these are not extravagant pictures you're looking at all. If you look at the numbers that they emit to, 30 million 1-ton bags, 150,000 sites, Ontario welcomes $80 million. Ontario welcomes. Ontario. So now they're speaking for everybody in the province. The expansion will create 250 good-paying jobs and support future nuclear generation. 250 good-paying jobs. It's really interesting how they framed that, isn't it? Unionized jobs, which is the worst case scenario when it comes to nuclear, because it's very difficult now to get rid of them. They don't want unions, but a union is a weapon for them to keep them around longer than you would normally be able to keep them around, because the union becomes very powerful. They have lobbyists, and it's very difficult to get rid of them, and the lobbyists help promote nuclear and get the government to invest. Canada's been captured by the nuclear industry since the 50s. And I don't mean loosely, it's been captured. Canada is as pro-nuclear as they get. Like France is pretty bad, but Canada's the worst. Believe you me. The expansion of reliable, affordable, clean nuclear energy to power our growing economy. First off, anything nuclear can do, geothermal can do 100 times better and 100 times quicker and 100 times cheaper. So reliable, affordable, and clean. Like, the word clean is very important to them, but there's nothing clean about nuclear. It's the dirtiest industry imaginable. And once you take the fuel out of the reactors after about 14 months, it's still splitting the atoms. It was splitting for the power of 1 million homes. It's still splitting those atoms, but now there's no containment. It's so insidious that this is the only reason it can exist, is because of pure evilness. When I say give me something evil from nuclear, this is what AI generated for me. Right? Because inside, this is what the pro-nuclear looks like. This is how they look at you. This is how they think about you. This is how they're sitting around making decisions. This is what under their hairdo and their perms and their their $5,000 suits and dirty underwear. This is inside of them. This is what they look like. This is what they feel like. This is what they're projecting. And this is why they get the things they do, because they're so evil. The people that would normally regulate them can't regulate them because they know that these are insidiously evil people. That they're not even people. That they're real-life monsters. New nuclear generation, including the first small modular reactors in the G7. The G7 is 7 nations, which is illegal for these leaders to meet in secrecy. For most Constitution, Bill of Rights, Magna Cartas, and that. It's illegal for your elected government officials to meet in secrecy and conspire to do things without a consensus, without referendums. But there is no small modular reactors. There is no new nuclear generation. Nuclear went backwards to 1.7 gigawatts last year. Renewables, when they hit 507 gigawatts, which is equal to over 600 large nuclear reactors coming online in 12 months. Currently, there's 364 gigawatts of nuclear, which is 407 reactors. So they average about 0.89 gigawatts per reactor. But every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. And every one of these farms should be stacked with 1-ton bags and remove them each year and then fill them up with 1-ton bags every year, because the fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation up those tall, skinny stacks with the red stripes. That's actually where they're hemorrhaging. They're venting the fuel pools in the incinerators. And the reason the majority of nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms is to poison you directly in the supermarket far away, see? And because your children are so vulnerable, a lot of these places are targeting baby food and cereals. In the G7. And the G7, of course, is this where once they get together, this is what they look like. Like, these are monsters. If you look at their legacy, if you look at their histories, if you look at their presence, then the only takeaway is these are monsters. They're real life monsters too. Not nice people, evil people. This $80 million investment shows how all communities can help meet Ontario's growing demand for clean energy. So again, right, they're trying to project that only nuclear is clean. Only nuclear has a future. But like, you can do geothermal anywhere. There is nowhere on the planet now that you can't do geothermal. And if they took 1/1000th of the money they burn every year on nuclear in the universities and on fusion in the universities, if you took 1/1000th of that and studied to come up with better, quicker ways to implement geothermal, we would resolve all of our issues right now. We wouldn't need nuclear, we wouldn't need gas, we wouldn't need oil, we wouldn't need coal. Geothermal can do it all. And it can do it all right away. Instead, they promote the dirtiest thing conceivable, the most disgusting thing imaginable, which is nuclear. And BWXT, which is a fuel processing pellet facility, makes fuel pellets, among other disease factories. Existing operation in Ontario, which already employs 1,200 sadistic demons. Those 1,200 people have never volunteered to go to Fukushima. Those 1,200 people have never pulled their money together to donate to the orphanages of deformed and disfigured children that are abandoned after Chernobyl. That their biggest dream of these children was a radio or a TV so they can be entertained, because they don't even have that. And the nuclear industry will contribute millions of dollars to the local Boys and Girls Club. They won't give anything to the children that have been abandoned and are disfigured and have no one to love them. And I can't reconcile that. That always bothers me so much that I have nothing but contempt for this industry. And every town with nuclear should be within 100 miles to 1,000 miles should be full of 1-ton bags. The global nuclear industry is increasingly being called upon to mitigate the impact of climate change. It's the most ludicrous assertion imaginable, is that nuclear can mitigate climate change. Last year was 1.7 gigawatts of nuclear went backwards. But there was 507 gigawatts, which is over 600 large nuclear power plants, animosity equivalent, in renewable energies came online that are permanent in 12 months, which is a 50 to 60% increase of the year before, which was an increase of 50 or 60 from the year before that. So over the next couple of years, they're going to curb stomp everything on the planet with renewables. So the nuclear industry is trying to find a little niche so they can continue to poison all the species that they haven't destroyed already. Destroy the human race that they haven't destroyed already. That's all they're trying to do, because that's what nuclear does. It destroys everything. And making power, by the way, is just a byproduct of the fuel cycle. The fuel cycle is about fuel, once it comes out of the reactors, producing plutonium and curium. It's splitting atoms forever. And some of this fuel is going to be used for nuclear weapons. And that's what the fuel cycle was always all about. And all of them admit it way back in the day, but they don't admit it no more, of course. But it's too late, because that nuclear nightmare is already out of the bag. No pun intended. Imagine, like, there's 149,000 pictures like this missing from 150,000 sites that they created. We have 1,000. Ontario can need to more than double its electricity generation capacity from 4,200 megawatts today to 8,800 megawatts in 2050. So Canada, they're saying, should build. Canada doesn't have 40 reactors. What the frig are they talking about? They're talking about 42 gigawatts. Canada doesn't have, electricity generation. And so they're saying nuclear should fill in the gap for the other 46 gigawatts. The industry can't exist by being humans. They can only exist by being monsters. And they can only exist with deceit and dishonesty and deception. Their entire legacy is predicated upon it. Could. But why would you put something on a planet which has these particular attributes? Well, what's the point of that? And then once it takes the fuel out of the reactor core after 14, 15 months, it's splitting atoms into the ecosystem. So even if you don't have a nuclear meltdown, you should still have 150 million sites like this worldwide every year. Because the fuel pools are never stop splitting atoms. An additional 17 gigawatts, 18 gigawatts of nuclear power could be required. Look, what are you talking about? You can't build it takes you 14, 15, 16, 17 years to build a reactor. And you got to use up all the precious resources on the planet just to build one reactor. You got to use up the best of the best steel, the best of the best wire, the best of the best copper, the best of the best metal, the best of the best engineers and architects, and the best of the best cranes, and the best of the best trucks, and the best of the best dredges and everything else. You don't have that. You don't even have a supply chain that can supply what you're alleging here. What you are doing is you're destroying the ability for the future to exist by not coming up with solutions to deal with the nightmare, the absolute nightmare that you already got created. And 150,000 sites like this in Japan is just a fraction of a percent of what should be cleaned up. Like, you can't clean up everything you dumped in the ocean. The Soviet Union got 18,000 dumps in the ocean. 18,000 dumps in the Arctic Ocean. The worst thing you can do is destroy the water. The most important asset that this planet has, and every species, including us, are dependent upon it, is the water. And the air, of course. But, I mean, my goodness, how can we destroy all the water? And you can destroy the water from a single nuclear accident. And we did. We can't take a chance on doing that again. This is France's government's model based on 31 days of radioactive fallout. And what you're looking at is 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air from Fukushima. But it's based upon venting. It's not even based upon actual nuclear meltdowns. So that model is 31 days. Here's the government's story. Government radiation levels on the U.S. West Coast. It wasn't just the West Coast, as the model just showed you. This is the entire planet, right? But this study was based upon 9 days of radioactive fallout. It was based on the 18th, so it's not even based on 9 days of radioactive fallout, because the fallout didn't start on the 11th. It started on the 12th to 13th to 14th, and as the reactors kept detonating, right? So this model up here is only based upon 6 or 7 days of radioactive fallout, but it's already inundated North America, the entire ocean. But of course, this is France's updated model based on, let me go 20 days. That's 20 days right there. But it's not really 20 days. It's 15 days after the last reactor blew up. The whole planet is covered in radioactive fallout of 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137, which pulses energy every second 600 feet. Now, this model, right away, you got to say, well, you got to do a mathematical equation, because that's what this is all about. So, 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air is going to be cesium-137, which means in that same plume, which is their updated version based on 20 days, right there, which is 15 days of radioactive fallout. In this same plume, which covers the entire planet, is going to be 100 times more strontium-90. And we got studies showing 220 million atoms per liter of rainfall from Ottawa, Canada. We got studies of 20 million particles, hot particles of iodine-131. And so iodine-131, you know there's going to be 10 times more iodine-132, 30 times more iodine-133, 31 times more iodine-129. We got the study on the 129 showing 220 million atoms. And we got a study on iodine-131 showing 20 million particles. This is crazy numbers. These are numbers that you couldn't make up. If I had wrote a book before Fukushima and put these particular attributes into the book, I would have been the laughing stock of the planet. But we have the studies, the actual studies, and people are denying it. Well, the nuclear industry doesn't really bother me. When I was on the ocean, they were pretty brave. They were attacking me all the time. When I was ashore, they kept their friggin' pie holes shut, because they knew I'd come out curb stomping right away. Not because I want to, it's because I got to, because I got no choice. Anybody thinks what I'm doing is easy, you give your fucking head a shake, and when it falls off, give it a kick. There's nothing easy about what I'm doing. First off, if I make a Freudian slip, I'm beat up over it over and over and over and over. It's clipped and then it's used to bludgeon me with for years and years and years. I'm not even allowed to make a Freudian slip. But how do you not? I come here every night in order to keep the story alive, because if I don't, the story fades away immediately. So I feel that as long as I'm here as often as I can, which is pretty often, preferably 5 days a week, and then every once in a while I just can't do it that day. Every once in a while there's a day where I can't do it. And I'll feel like shit that night, and I'll feel like shit the whole next day. And so I know, I got myself trained that it's better for me to come here and do the video than it is not to do the video, because I'm going to feel like shit if I don't do the video. Because that means the industry got a day off, and they don't deserve a day off. They deserve to be dropped into meat grinders, large transport trucks, meat grinders, and gotten rid of. They don't deserve to be on our planet. Anybody that denies this doesn't deserve to be on our planet. Poland's first nuclear plant may carry 35 billion pound price tag. $35 billion price tag. Poland got jack shit. They're going to burn $35 billion, which is actually around $40 billion when you convert it to American, right? It shows you how crazy nuclear industry actually is, right? Like $35 billion is enough for geothermal and wind and solar to power the whole country and have it all up and running in a couple of years, instead of this nightmare that's going to take 15 or 20 years. $35 billion. It's just, there's stupid and then there's nuclear. It's pretty hard to, look at a chicken, Exla. Oh, you put a suit and tie on them, now they're special. And this is how it works, right? And the average person falls. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with suits and ties. I've made a lot of videos with suits and ties on trying to fit in, right? But it's not me. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Because as soon as it's over, I'm going to tear everything off me. I just don't feel right. And it's deceitful. And it's not me. I don't wear... There's nothing wrong with suits and ties. But it is when it's used, right, to manipulate and deceive people. And these people, without their suits and ties, you wouldn't give them 2 cents. You wouldn't give them a nickel. You wouldn't give them another look. But you roll them out in a suit and tie, and they say, we need nuclear. There's nothing else that can work. 35 billion pounds is crazy. For a nuclear plant, for a power plant. And you're going to need, how many? $1 trillion to clean it up after when you have an accident? Film screening. This is one we never got to last night. Atomic Hope. Inside the Pro-Nuclear Scumbag Movement by Green Planet Films present. So, hey, they made a lot of money making a stupid video to lie about people. What they're not going to show you is that. Green Planet is not going to show you this. And how deceitful to call something Green Planet Films when nuclear got nothing to do with green. Nuclear is the dirtiest, most destructive thing in human history. There's an appropriate picture. Look right there. And every town with a nuclear plant, the streets should be looking exactly like that, because the fuel pools are destroying those communities forever. Inside the stupid pro-nuclear movement, the moron pro-nuclear, the dummy pro-nuclear movement, Atomic Hope follows a tiny global movement of unpopular pro-nuclear activists. Unpopular because they're scumbags, because they're degenerates. They're not unpopular because they're good people. They're unpopular because they're fucking monsters. And call them activists. Activists who wants to destroy your friends and your families, your loved ones, your community forever. Your pets, your puppies. They hate you. They literally hate everything about you. I'll prove it to you. Unpopular pro-nuclear. And then they call themselves activists. Well, you won't see the pro-nuclear down there writing on the 1-ton bag saying Dana's wrong. I can tell you that much. You won't see the pro-nuclear on top of it. You won't see Green Planet down there stood on the bag saying how fucking carbon-free nuclear is, will you? However, in the face of this pushback and conflict, they argue that science and data are all we have. And it's the science. Trust the science. They base their environmental movement on. These are not environmentalists, environmental movements. Go down to Footabar and shoot a video and tell me how fucking environmentally fucking friendly this is. And the cast, Michael Schellenberg, Professor Jim Smith, the scum of the scum, from United Kingdom, Professor Geraldine Thomas, the most degenerate human imaginable, and a real-life monster, too, who eats the souls of children with proton beams and gamma shines and x-rays and neutron bombardments. Michael Schellenberg, literally a demon, literally a real life demon. We've been covering him for years and years and years. It's a real life demon. Professor Jim Smith, and he's from, what is it? I can't remember the community, the university off the top of my head for some reason. I apologize. We've covered him friggin' hundreds of times. He can't open his mouth without telling the biggest lie conceivable. And Geraldine Thomas, Professor Gerald Thomas, 100% monster, who should be charged with crimes against humanity a long time ago. I can't comprehend why she's still allowed to murder children in the hospital and universities for her. And she's these people are professors, and so their students are serial killers. Like Geraldine Thomas is simply a serial killer. There's simply no other way to describe her than a serial killer. And she's prolific serial killer. An actual real life demon, eh?
So, for example, coming here, I would have got a dose of 0.07 millisieverts on the flight. And I actually went round Fukushima Daiichi on Wednesday, and the dose that I had going around the site, so very close to where the reactors are, it was 0.01 and probably lower, but that's the lowest it could actually read. So I got more of a dose flying here, and we'll get a dose tomorrow when I fly home, than I would have done from being in Fukushima.
Look, let me do that one more time, because the first time you see it, it scares you and it's hard to take it in. So let's play it one more time.
So, for example, coming here, I would have got a dose of 0.07 millisieverts on the flight. And I actually went round Fukushima Daiichi on Wednesday, and the dose that I had going around the site, so very close to where the reactors are, it was 0.01 and probably lower, but that's the lowest it could actually read. So I got more of a dose flying here, and we'll get a dose tomorrow when I fly home, than I would have done from being in Fukushima.
She'd kill your kids so quick you couldn't even blink. And so she claims she went to the nuclear meltdown and she couldn't find anything. Where am I to? Let me get Geraldine Thomas out of the way. I don't want to scare you any more tonight. I know how terrifying that was. And so this director, look at him. Got his hair all messed up, and he thinks he's he wants to portray himself as a good person, right? And his friends and families probably fall for it. But to take a job to promote nuclear so you can get a paycheck means you're a sadistic monster. You should go down to Fukushima and tell them how wonderful nuclear is and see what happens to your lips and your eyes when they get all swelled up from people trying to kill you. There he is without his face mask on. Oh, I can't tell the difference. Can you tell the difference? Oh, I can't tell the difference. And so he makes these films to persuade people that don't understand, that are complacent or believe in Frankie the monster, Frankie the sadistic. There's Frankie. Frankie in all of his glory. That's Frankie right there, look. Hi, Frankie, the director. Frankie says he's a good person, but deep inside, this is Frankie. And anybody that promotes the monstrous, sadistic nuclear, like Frankie, is a demon. That's a demon. It follows over a 10-year period, environmental activists. These are not, because it was Michael Schellenberg who used to come out with that word, environmental activists, right? And we used to cover the story. We blow up laughing every time we get to it because it's so ridiculous to suggest that a pro-nuclear is an environmental activist. He wanted, but now he does it all the time. He's wrote books and everything, And his books are bestsellers because the nuclear industry is going to promote the shit out of that lie. So he's very wealthy off his lie, right? Michael Schellenberg is very, very wealthy off his lie. He's made a lot of money being a monster, and he's addicted to it. And he doesn't care that he's a monster. He knows he's a monster. Same as Frankie knows he's a monster. Frankie knows better. Frankie knows this is only meant to destroy everybody's future. This is probably Frankie right there looking at his handiwork. Film screening Atomic Hope inside the pro-nuclear scumbag movement by Green Planet Degenerate Film presents lie after lie after lie. The truth doesn't matter. April 21st. It was yesterday, right? Green Planet has got nothing to do with green, does it? Mystic Luxury Cinema. That's where they're going to do the chummy yesterday. I'm sure they're going to be there today, in the Moral, to promote their disaster machine. What a piece of shit to take a job promoting from the director of the Nuclear Scumbag Show, which is me, Atomic Reality Inside the Nuclear Facts. And that's what I provide you. I provide you with nothing but facts. Whereas Frankie only provides you with deceit and dishonesty and deception. Frankie the monster. And there's so many monsters like Frankie out there, you actually can't keep up with him, right? But he's an extra degenerate. He spent 10 years making a pile of money, and now he's going to make a pile of money at $68 a person to buy the DVD or watch the fucking movie. Can you imagine how many people like that exist? Xcel Energy is looking to store more nuclear waste in Prairie Island Generating Station, which is right alongside a major reservation for the natives. They love putting these places by the natives and poisoning the natives. They hate the natives, eh? Xcel, which of course their legacy is hideous. The state of Minnesota has begun a review to determine if Xcel Energy, which is Montebello, or I can't even remember now, sorry, should get additional space to store nuclear material as Prairie Isle. They'll get it. Who's going to say no to the nuclear industry? They're not going to have a job tomorrow. The Minnesota Public Utilities Commission said it has completed Xcel's application for additional dry cask storage, which is all vented, by the way, kicking off the environmental review process. First off, if you're going to do an environmental review of nuclear, you're going to deny it. You can't do an environmental review of nuclear and promote it and say, yeah, go ahead, because it's hemorrhaging radiation to the ecosystem 24 hours a day. And they have so many of these scumbags, they're put up in the major media. The media will pump it down everybody's throat. The Pentagon is speeding up work on the first new nuclear warhead in 40 years. Speeding up work on something they can't use. Speeding up work on something that's going to pollute everything for 1,000 miles around it, which is your typically Los Alamos National Laboratory. Nuclear threats from China. Russia's drive work on a W-93 for submarine launch missiles. Right? And so the nuclear industry, there's 9,000 industries for nuclear, not just nuclear power. There's 9,000 industries. And every one of them will cut your throat to keep their job. Every one of them will destroy you to keep their job. Every one of them will attack you, make up lies about you, spread lies about you to keep that job. Every one of them. And they don't really got anybody to pick on. So guess who gets the bulk of their rage? Dana. They got no one that they can point at and attack. And so guess what happens to me? Nuclear is literally the stupidest, idiotic, most disgusting, despicable thing in history. We got nothing else that can touch the evilness of nuclear. We really don't. Oh, besides Jennifer, the moron, who sold her soul for a big paycheck, like the rest of these shit for brains. You can build a road from Fukushima, stacked with bags like this, right around the entire planet more than once. If you pick up 6% of the land in Fukushima Prefecture. As it is, they only picked up 3% of the land where they're going to move people to, which is 30 million one-ton bags, which is enough to have a road traffic around the planet 5 times in one-ton pickup trucks. There's 5 rows of traffic, bumper to bumper, wrapped around the entire planet, is what they picked up at Fukushima. If that's not insane, what actually is? Oh, well, now they're cutting the bags open, dumping the soil, and growing food in it, so they can ship it to your country and get rid of you so you don't complain about it. Oh, that's right, designed the Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is on one of the biggest aquifers on the friggin' planet, right above it. And Los Alamos National Laboratory is just a tiny spot above this massive aquifer, and that's completely contaminated from nuclear meltdowns and nuclear dumping and unmitigated. Like during the Manhattan Project, there was no checks and balances. They just dumped it right into the water, into the watersheds, into the rivers, into the estuaries, into the streams. They just dumped it. And this was the most toxic stuff conceivable. Well, we don't know what to do. It's killing everything. And just dump it in the river. It's the war. It's the Manhattan Project. We're allowed to do it. These are scumbags. And we got to deal with it. We got no options. We got no choice. We have no options. We have no right not to go after these scumbags. We have no right. Well, let's go over to the pole. Wherever that might be. Japan has 30 million one-ton bags of Fukushima nuclear fallout gathered up. They stopped picking it up after that. The International Atomic Energy says there's 0 got out of the reactors. Have you seen the reactors? So, according to them, nothing got out of this building that doesn't exist anymore. That's the stump of Reactor 3, the ghost of Reactor 3. But there wasn't a nuclear scientist, a nuclear academic, a nuclear professor, a nuclear dean. There wasn't a nuclear student on the planet. When they looked at these original pictures of Reactor 4 and Reactor 3, for instance, there wasn't a single academic in nuclear industry worldwide that didn't know the fuel pool was gone, that didn't know the reactor cores were gone. There wasn't a single one. And today they're saying that, no, nothing got out. Because we never held them accountable. Well, not like we didn't try, is it? Iran media says nuclear facilities are completely secure. Iran beat the shit out of Israel. Israel shit itself over and over and over. And instead of going back and beating up Iran like they said they were going to do, anybody attacks us, we're going to hit them back 100 times harder. They're like, don't want no more of that. Because if they attack Iran's nuclear, Iran's going to fucking smack their nuclear, going to wait for the wind to blow towards Israel before they blow it up. And they ain't gonna. There's nothing Israel can do to stop them. Israel just got slapped down. So Israel says, well, let's go back and bomb the Gazans. They can't fight back. They don't got tanks. They don't got jet fighters. They don't got artillery. They don't got aircrafts. They don't got a navy. Let's go kill them. They can't fight back. And so all the Israelis like, yay, let's go kill the Palestinians. We can't do anything to the Iranians. They'll kick the fucking shit out of us. The whole nuclear industry is nothing but cowards. They really are cowards, aren't they? Have you ever seen anything like the nuclear industry? Cowardly, the coward industry, the moron industry, shit for brains industry. It's really a shit for brain industry, isn't it? The people in the pro-nuclear are literally shit for brains. The most uneducated, the most stupid, the most heartless, soulless, moronic idiots you will ever come across. They're destroying their own children's future, their own future, and everybody else's future, so they get a fucking paycheck. They got great degrees, but they got no fucking common sense whatsoever. Not even a peck of it. It's just, the industry doesn't let them get a job unless they're 100% morons, right? And that they're willing to kill everything to maintain their paychecks. You got to put them in a suit and give them an office, make them feel good about themselves. Give them a few awards once in a while. They'll do anything. They'll kill everything for keep their fucking job. Iran threatens to target Israel's nuke facility. And Israel's like, okay, we're going to go kill Palestinians. They don't fight back. Let's go kill the Palestinians. They're not going to fight back. Iran's fighting back. We can't do nothing about that. Why are all nuclear power plants surrounded by farms? Because that's what evil does. It's the only thing they're good at is being evil. They don't know how to do anything else. And they'll sit around, what's the most evilest way we can do this with nuclear? And somebody will say, well, I would say, but it's too evil. Everyone's like, no, come on, God, tell us. Oh, Jesus, this is great. Let's do that. Let's use that technique. There's sad stories when it comes to nuclear. The victims of nuclear is just terrifying. Living under a mushroom cloud, the daughter of a nuclear bomb test veteran blames the radiation for the crippling health issues. And over, we see these stories of victims of nuclear. Every time you see a 1-ton black bag like this, Japan picked up 30 million of them. The nuclear industry used the soldiers. They made them sit there within a distance of the nuclear where it blew all the radiation on top of them. They denied them health care, and then they studied them for the rest of their lives. And a lot of them, when they died, they dug up their bodies after the funerals, took it to the laboratories, and incinerated the bodies to sniff the ashes for isotopes. And with the children that were born that died prematurely or died early, they done the same thing where they dug up, they admit this. You tell me that industry has any redeeming qualities? You're friggin' insane. She was born with Duane syndrome, a condition which makes her eyes move independently, before being diagnosed with ovary syndrome and Graves' disease in 2014 and chronic migraines in 2016 and neurological disorders in 2023. And when she found out that her dad was a human guinea pig for the nuclear industry, she started talking to the other victims' families and discovered the same kind of stuff happening in all of them. And see, they take these kids, these are kids, right? And you join something you can't even quit. And you can't say no to. Or you get court-martialed. Think of it. Imagine you go to work at McDonald's, and if you don't serve poison food, then they're going to court-martial you and put you in jail for 10 years. See, the military is the only one that does that. Because you know that once you get in there, you don't want to fucking be there. But if you keep you there long enough, you become desensitized. A percentage of you. The atomic moron. That's the only way you can think about nuclear. Western named academic partners by the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council. The Canadian Nuclear... And look at the grandiose, like the great big gates they got and the great big facilities. Endless money to be evil. If you start up an organization like this, they'll throw money at you to keep you in business forever and ever and ever. The Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council is named Western Universities an academic partner. These are not academics. These are the furthest thing from an academic. These are actual monsters disguised as academics. This is what they look like. School, calling this a school of destruction. Said they have already partnered with other agencies in nuclear. There is no nuclear medicine. It's an idiot industry. Isotopes can be used to treat. You can't treat anything with isotopes. It doesn't work that way. Your body rejects it. Your body attacks it every second for the rest of your life with white blood cells. How the fuck is that a cure? Not only that, you causes incredible autoimmune illnesses and diseases, lung problems, liver problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. You can't treat cancer with radiation. An example of a medical isotope produced at Bruce Power Disease Factory in Ontario, Canada. This is not medical isotopes. This is a genocide isotope. This is used to destroy the health of your children, your friends, your families, and your loved ones. France's build-out plan must not jeopardize nuclear growth. Given that the nuclear projects have faced significant construction delays and cost overruns, France plans to build 14 new reactors by 2050 is not only unrealistic, it's idiotic when there's so many better solutions. It's literally the stupidest thing imaginable that they're going to build 14 new nuclear reactors. They can't even keep their own reactors they got running. Like, how many was it last year shut down? Was it 29 of them? They had to shut down because the reactors in France uses 70% of the fresh water. 70% of the fresh water. And so in the summertime, the rivers will boil because they're using the water and then putting it back in at much hotter temperatures. And the elderly, of course, are destroyed. All the fish are killed off in those rivers. The oxygen is killed off. These are no longer rivers. These are nuclear sewages, right? Nuclear should continue playing a key role in France's power sector, but not at the expenses of renewable growth. There is no renewable growth in France. France is committed to being stupid and evil, and they're really fucking good at it. French policies have recently shifted from a commitment to reduce nuclear generation to calls for a renaissance of the technology. A renaissance. A renaissance of disease factories. There is no nuclear renaissance. There's not going to be a nuclear renaissance. The only renaissance out there is gouging the taxpayers whatever they can before the truth comes out. And there's a big renaissance of that, isn't it? France's heavy reliance on nuclear has kept its power sector emissions relatively low. Like, what are you talking about, man? Almost every nuclear power plant in France, if not every one of them, are along one major river and are surrounded by farms. You're poisoning everybody all the time. Nuclear dominated France's power mix since the 80s. France wanted the massive nuclear to produce fission products for nuclear bombs. And then they wanted to test these bombs on the French Polynesians, which was equal to a Nagasaki bomb every week for 12 years in radioactive fallout. A Nagasaki bomb every week for 12 years to the French Polynesians. So imagine what it done to the ocean, all that fallout. What it done to the biosphere. Just that one country, that one evil, despicable country, who has denied that there was any adverse side effects from radiation for the entire legacy. The French Polynesians are human guinea pigs. But it's worse than that. It's such a cruel thing to do to people. And yet the French still think of themselves as fucking civilized nation. France has also developed an industry to export its nuclear reactor. Well, that's a little bit of a stretch. Yeah, they got one in Finland, China, and the UK. But how long has it took them to bring it to fruition? Construction of the latest reactor, Flamanville 3, started in 2007, is yet to be commissioned. So far, it's delayed by 12 years. It's 12 years behind schedule and 4 times over budget. 4 times over budget. 4 times over budget. So Poland, going to do 35 billion sterlings, can expect to be 3 or 4 times over budget for a power plant. How do you get that stupid anyway? How does that actually work? Really, how do you get that stupid? That's a legitimate question. I want to know. I'm just curious. Because I can't figure it out on my own. Tripling the world's nuclear energy capacity is a fantasy. A guest opinion, of course. New York Times. And this was a good one, actually. Look at all the grapevines right alongside the nuclear disease factories. World leaders not unaware of the nuclear industry's long history of failing to deliver on its promises or of its weakening vital signs. Yet many continue to act as if a nuclear renaissance could be around the next corner, even though nuclear energy's share of global electricity generation has fallen by almost half of its high of roughly 17% in 1996. Every year it falls again, right? In search of that revival, representatives from more than 30 countries gathered in Brussels, we covered it, in March at a nuclear summit, the first nuclear summit, hosted by the degenerate, sadistic International Atomic Energy Agency / League of Nations. And the Belgian government. 34 nations. These are not nations. Like some of these places are fucking nothing but war criminals and crimes against humanity. 34 nations. It's a big stretch to call a lot of these places nations. We covered it. A lot of these places where the average person is living on $34 a week or something, including the United States and China. And China didn't go there, I noticed. Agreed to work to fully unlock the potential of nuclear energy, including extending the lifetime of existing reactors, because they can't build new ones. So the only way they can do it is extend the lifetime of the fragile, brittle disease factories that they currently have. Like the proper name for a nuclear plant should obviously be changed to a disease factory. Once you take fuel out of the reactor and put it in the pool, you are nothing but a great big stupid fucking disease factory. The reality of the day in most markets is the reality of a slow and steady decline in market share for nuclear disease factories. Solar alone added more than 400 gigawatts of capacity last year, 2/3 more than the previous year, and that's more than roughly 375 gigawatts of combined capacity of the world's 407, not 415 nuclear reactors, which remain relatively unchanged last year. Well, they went backwards 1.7 gigawatts, 2 large nuclear reactors. And a single nuclear meltdown can destroy the whole ecosystem, and has. You got 407 of them out there waiting to go pop because they're old and they're brittle from the neutron bombardment, from the Wigner effect. At the same time, investment in energy storage technology is accelerating. In 2023, Bloomberg reported the investors for the first time put more money into stationary energy storage than they did into scumbag nuclear. And there's some incredible, awesome solutions for storage. Still, the drumbeat of the nuclear disease factories become pronounced. At the League of Nations Climate Conference in Dubai in December, the Biden administration persuaded 24 countries to pledge to triple their disease factory capacity by 2050. And those countries include idiots like the nuclear in the United States with troubled nuclear programs, most notably France, Britain, Japan, idiot South Korea, whose nuclear bureaucracies will be propped up by the declaration as well as the domestic nuclear industry they are trying to save. See, just Japan's site alone, Fukushima site, if you picked up 100% of the land instead of 3% of the habitable land that they wanted to make habitable, but you can't, but they faked it with 30 million one-ton bags. If you actually picked up through all the forests, the other 97% too, you can make lanes like this of 1-ton bags wrapped around the planet about 150 fucking times. Just from a single site. From radioactive fallout from a single prefecture. Remember, 14 prefectures were banned by 55 countries for a decade. John Kerry, the Biden administration climate envoy at the time, said, John Kerry, this is like the craziest, most lunatic person imaginable, But we know because the science and reality of the facts and evidence tell us that you can't get to net zero without nuclear by 2050. So unless you pollute the entire planet, you can't get to net zero. What the fuck is net zero? It was a paper written by Miles Allen, who got a nice cushy job at Cambridge in the United Kingdom now as a professor. The United Nations took it and used it and weaponized it against humanity. There is no net zero. It's ludicrous to suggest there's a net zero. Instead of coming up with solutions, right? They say there is no solutions. The only solution is to get rid of everybody or add more nuclear to make sure we get rid of everything and everybody. Because nuclear gets rid of everything, all 8 million species. And humans are at the top of the list to get rid of for them. Some see smaller, some idiots, some morons in the nuclear industry, scumbags, some scumbags and degenerates and monsters see smaller or more advanced reactors. These are not advanced, they're using mixed oxide fuel, high SA grade, like a 15, 16, 70% grade. This is weapon production fuel that produces 5 times more fuel rods if you scale it up to a conventional reactor. That produces 30 times more high-level waste and 35 times more intermediate-level waste. And intermediate-level waste will kill you quite quickly compared to high-level waste will kill you right away. None of it has any redeeming qualities. This is not advanced. This is advanced death machines, advanced disease factories, advanced nightmare for the future of humanity. If there can't be a future with nuclear, period. Or the pro-fucking nuclear community on top of that. And they can sugarcoat it as much as they want, but it still doesn't disguise the fucking monster that's in your face every day, every second. So far, most of the remains in the early stages with only 3 nuclear reactors under construction in Western Europe, 2 in Britain, 1 in France, each more than a decade behind schedule. There is no nuclear renaissance. There's nuclear stupid. There's no nuclear renaissance. And the reactors that they're building could, even if you stopped them right now and took the money left over, can be replaced with geothermal and other renewables long before they would have finished the other reactors. Nuclear can't exist in us. Nuclear can only exist by consuming all the species. The Energy Department estimated total cost of 200 reactors, 200 gigawatts, which is more than 200 reactors, because a reactor is typically 0.89 gigawatts. So in order for the United States to get another 200 gigawatts, another 200 nuclear reactors, they said $700 billion. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You ain't going to build any reactors for $3.25 billion in America. It's simply never going to happen. So you want to up that estimate to around 3.8 trillion or something. Oh no, we can do it for $700 billion. Like anything the nuclear says, you're going to triple the price immediately. And then in a couple of years, they're going to chew through that because 90% of it is going to go to administration. A director at the Institute for Energy Economy and financial analysts has calculated the 2 new reactors at the Georgia plant, the only new reactors built in the United States, on average cost $21 million per megawatt in today's dollars, or $21 billion per gigawatt. $21 billion. It's so ludicrous. And after 14 months, you're going to take the fuel and put it in the pool, and it's going to contaminate everybody in the communities. And Alzheimer's and dementia and autism, diabetes and Down syndrome and schizophrenia and everything else is going to explode in those communities. Nuclear is the stupidest, most hateful, despicable, scumbag industry conceivable. It has no right to exist, and everybody on the planet should be gone to war against this fucking scumbag chicken neck industry. Everybody. Russia destroys almost all of Ukraine's thermal power generation. Nuclear plants are under threat, says Zelensky. Didn't Zelensky just get $61 billion US? $61 billion to destroy the rest of his country. When that staged event started between Russia and Ukraine, because that was staged, let's face it, I put out a video within 2 days or something and said Zelensky should surrender rather than destroy the country with 13 million people, destroy their legacy, their homes, their graveyards, their communities, their future, their harmony. And I was right, wasn't I? He should have surrendered. Like, the people should have killed him right on sight. That should be fucking dead. And not on a quick way either. That should be roasted over a fucking spit in a campfire with everybody singing and dancing with a big fucking apple in his mouth for what he done. Truly the lowest form of life right there is Zelensky. Political leaders urge to recognize the importance of nuclear power plant technologies. Political leaders. So the country can vote against it, but the political leaders will just rule against it, right? Editor-in-chief of science and business website Atomic Energy. So, like, if you're the editor-in-chief of a science business website called Atomic Energy 2.0, and you don't promote nuclear, then there's something wrong with the equation, isn't it? And then what's the incentive for somebody who's the editor-in-chief of a website called Atomic Energy to promote nuclear? What's the incentive, I wonder? Their whole existence is to promote nuclear. They have the credibility of a fucking cockroach, which cockroach is nice compared to those people, actually. And the scumbags never take a break, you notice? Is the future of cruise and nuclear? Sea Trade Cruise Global Conference. Oh, we can put nuclear reactors on ships. Well, you're not going to put this as an icebreaker, nuclear icebreaker, if I remember correctly. How many reactor cores have they dumped up in the Arctic from the Lenin and the other Soviet? Like the first nuclear icebreaker, they dumped 2 reactor cores into the fucking Arctic Ocean, fully loaded. Why would you want more of that stupid on your planet for? You're not going to leave nothing for anybody else? Or even yourself? Well, the U.S. detonated a nuclear bomb in space. Oh, they got a million excuses. And none of them are real. None of them are true. Referendum on nuclear power. Italians ahead of politicians. A referendum on nuclear power. And they show you a fucking nuclear plant surrounded by farms. We didn't evolve, we de-evolved, right? If you're going to promote nuclear, you're de-evolving. Over half of the Italians would vote in favor of a consultative referendum on new nuclear power plants. And that population is going to be inundated with bananas and potato chips and walking in sunshine and climbing fucking mountains and flying on airplanes. And they're like, nuclear is wonderful. Yes, boy, yes. The best news for us is obviously the fact that the young people are the most favorable segment of the population, with 60% in favor of disease factories, because they're the most propagated, right? But it's the elderly that are the voters, not the young people. The first good news is the Italians have finally understood that the third generation, which doesn't exist, and large-size reactors currently on the market are exactly as safe as the smaller ones. Smaller ones don't exist. You can't quantify an assertion that they're safe if they don't exist. You despicable piece of shit. Excuse me for being honest. The percentage that answers they are safe isn't in fact exactly the same, 71%. So they get the population so well brainwashed about something that doesn't even exist, that they can't even quantify. That's pretty good. That's pretty good public relation right there, isn't it? Nuclear got 1,000 public relation firms that all would have targeted those kids to get a yes vote. Imagine, 71% of the population says they're safe and clean and better, and they don't even exist. And the fact is, there's nothing safe, clean about the future small modular reactors. These are absurd disease factors we're talking about, with high assay mixed oxide, plutonium mixed oxide fuel. That's the worst of the worst concoction, and you can't contain it. Nuclear is all about the brainwashing, right? Nuclear. 2 startups joined forces to accelerate innovative mini reactors in Europe. And but we know both of these. These are degenerates. They don't even have a product. Why are we talking about it? And they're going to use fast neutrons, which is plutonium mixed oxide, and molten salt. Of course, all the molten salt reactors in history have melted down. Let's use that. Why not use that? FEMA map identifies the most likely nuclear targets in Colorado. Like, no matter what you do, nuclear... According to the map's legend, targets in 2,000 warhead scenarios designed by the black dots, and purple are the U.S. nuclear targets in the 500 warhead. So if there's 500 warheads, they'll be targeting the purple. If there's 2,000 warheads, they're going to target the black dots. Which is still less than the Soviet Union biggest nuclear weapon combined, which was 3,800 Nagasaki bombs going off at one time. And by the way, let's say they've done that, right? The radioactive fallout will cover the entire planet, not just America. So they show the targets, but don't show you the radioactive fallout. That's pretty nice of them, isn't it? The king of bombs. There it is right there. Look, the taser bomb. It blew out glass and windows almost 600 miles away. Almost 1,000 kilometers away. It blew out people's windows. It sent a mushroom cloud. These are not mushroom clouds. These are radioactive nightmares halfway into space, which means it was distributed around the entire planet through the jet stream immediately. Explosions equal to 57,000 kilotons, which is equal to 3,800 Nagasaki bombs going off, because that was a plutonium bomb, right? 60 miles above the planet's surface, and that's over halfway to the height that the space shuttle orbits Earth. And the bomb flash was visible 1,000 kilometers away, 620 miles away. Most terrifyingly, a photographer at Ground Zero after the fact said, the ground surface of the island was leveled. It was swept. It was licked so that it looked like a skating rink. And the same goes for the rocks. There's not a trace of unevenness in the ground. And everything in this area had been swept clean, scoured, melted, and blown away. And so whoever wrote that story would have died that year. How fucking stupid you got to be to go to a spot like that? Well, that was probably his last story, I guess. Energer, which is the Europe nuclear industry, and Holtec, Chris Singh. A despicable piece of shit, Chris Singh. Why is he allowed to exist? Like, do you realize what Holtec is doing to you? He's taking the money for decommissioning a nuclear plant, which typically takes 60 years. And he's taking that money and getting the job done in a couple of years. And the money left over is his profit. So the incentive for a degenerate to make a profit is to do the worst job possible. How can you put a responsibility like a disease factory in the hands of a known criminal like Chris Singh? Is beyond my comprehension. Group invests $10 million to build Europe's largest heavy machinery and nuclear fabrication facility. The largest, $10 million. You got to be kidding me, right? And everything helps. Just because they built it don't mean... Like, NewScale built a couple of facilities and brought all the media in there, and they spent, $190 million or something on equipment. They brought all the media walked around, they took all the pictures, you couldn't believe it. And then 2 years later, when no one's paying attention anymore, they sold everything off. put the money in their own pockets. One of them used to call me all the time, brag about the fact that he had 26 hot rod cars in his garage. A real piece of friggin' work, that guy. Russia has destroyed almost all of Ukraine's thermal generations may target the nuclear power plant. So Zelensky, with all this fear-mongering, just got $61 billion, rather. Today, that's the announcement, right, from America. Who knows what they got from Britain and France and everybody else. Remember when this happened, they had Girl Guides were baking cookies, and children in school were baking cookies and selling the cookies to give the money to Zelensky to buy weapons from the weapons producer. That's how fucking stupid this planet got. That's the ultimate in stupid. They must have been pretty proud of themselves, I suppose. But there was coffee shops. All the money that day were going to Zelensky so he can buy weapons to defeat Russia. There was so many grandmas and grandpas were out there doing bake sales, out there fundraising to send money to Zelensky to buy weapons. And everybody that done it was put up on the media, and they were interviewed, and they were given pat on the backs, and they were put on the Facebook and Twitter and everything else, and they felt really good about themselves. Because there's lots of useful fucking idiots on the planet. But we need people that got up. We need people to make a fucking stand. We need people that are just, all you gotta do is be honest, tell the truth. It's not very hard to tell the truth. Russia can destroy everything, but they haven't killed that fucker yet. You want to explain that to me? Oh, great. Another Rotherham research company finds a way to reduce nuclear waste manufacturing costs. Well, like Chris Singh, that's how they make their profit, right? Dump it in your fucking dump or something. And you're building a row at a time until you reach your shape. Ha ha! These are shysters. Scumbags are a dime a dozen, and they're all out there with the fear mongering. They're going to push the weapon. If you don't give us all the fucking money we need, they're going to push the weapons. The future is geothermal. Period. The present is geothermal. Geothermal energy is the most versatile power source imaginable. This one here cracks me up. Look at this little facility. There's not much to it, is it? Produce electricity for the first time. There's a little tiny geothermal plant. It's a 50 kilowatt geothermal plant, enough for 50 homes. So any community can make a whole bunch of these, and each one of them power and make a better version of it, obviously. But that's enough to power 50 homes. So each neighborhood can have one of these and power the homes in the neighborhood. Geothermal is, the technology is amazing. Geothermal heating, air conditioning. Why startup is the first urban project in South Austin, Texas. And she's one of the co-owners, apparently. And this was their big step into the media. The co-founder of Bedrock Energy talks to state representatives, unveiling the company's first geothermal project last Wednesday. I love stuff like that. It's wonderful, isn't it? That's the whole crew. Ha ha, there she goes, boys. You don't have to store anything for 1,000,000 fucking years. You're not going to give everybody cancer within 1,000 fucking miles. Ah, that's stupid, Dana. Bless their hearts for doing it. Geothermal heating and cooling is ready to erupt. Like, geothermal can take over the planet. Nuclear industry can destroy it, and will. Not maybe. It's well on its way now. Fervo Forges hit with the world's largest next-generation geothermal project in Beaver County. Will become the world's largest enhanced geothermal site with the aim of producing 400 megawatts of 24/7 carbon-free electricity. You got to use the word. You don't use the word, you're missing out. It's the stupidest word imaginable, carbon-free. So 400 megawatts. This is how dinosaur geothermal is. And there's no reason for it. Geothermal, like you should be producing 12 of them instead of just one. But it shows you each time and every time that this technology has come to fruition. Tomorrow I'm going to go pick up a 5-foot by 10-foot trailer. It's going to need a lot of work because I can't afford anything decent. And so I saved up my pennies, and I got to spend like a fucking $100 to go pick it up to get there for fuel. And I'm going to get this thing, drag it home. And then I got the tools now to fix everything up, so there's a lot of friggin' work there. But I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to use it as a number of things. But the main reason I'm getting that one is I wanted a small trailer for the Zodiac, the small Zodiac, so I can put the motors on it, the cabin on it. And I got the two Zodiacs. If I want to go into a pond or a river or just go out for a day run a long distance away, I can just tow the small one because I can't fund this operation like a normal operation would be funded, right? Nuclear industry has made sure of that. And I'm going to spend my pension in order to get it, but it'll do the world a big favor. And so also want to thank Ron E. donated $10 this week. I forgot to mention it last night. And William D. donated $6.50. And I also want to mention, we haven't heard from Stephen Young. I know Stephen Young was doing his next infusion of what he called to me, and he told me it was like a chemical concoction or something, because he got another diagnosis last month, and they're trying this new regimen to help him, right? And hopefully, they said by the end of it's a couple of weeks in between each infusion, but they're crazy infusions. It's like 4.5 hours a day, 3 days in a row. And Stephen can't even barely get it. Well, he can't get out of a wheelchair. He used to go and walk friggin' for hours every day with the puppies, right? And for over 3.5, 4 years now, he's been completely devastated, slowly clawing his way back. But he still doesn't have his health, and he's hoping this will bring. So everybody should send out their prayers for Stephen. Also, just a reminder, because Stephen and his wife have supported this operation for a very long time, and we've actually become friends over that time. And he used to email all kinds of Congress and senators and everything, and he used to CC it to me, their replies, and they would get these chain letters. But it never deterred him a single time. But that's how you open eyes, right? They might deny you, but somebody had to read that original reply, see? And if everybody done it, look how much better the world could be, see? Alrighty, how far did we get tonight? Let me see what I got done to everybody here. Oh, we're only at the 12. It's midnight. It's 3 minutes after midnight. That means, woohoo! Game over for me tonight. We made it. I don't know how the hell we done it, but we done it. And we still got a poll there to close down. Let's close down the poll. Let's put that baby to rest. Japan has 30 million one-ton bags of Fukushima nuclear fallout picked up. But the International Atomic Energy Agency says zero got out of Fukushima. And because they got 30 million one-ton bags, that's the evidence that the International Atomic Energy Agency is a monster. Right? That's not up for debate. That's simply not up for debate, that they're monsters. They are monsters to do what they're doing, and to say that nothing got out means they're monsters. And it looks like we got censored incredible tonight. We got 27 likes. We got 32 votes. Because whenever you criticize the International Atomic Energy Agency, you get no views and you get no votes compared to any other subject. Which is the League of Nations, right? That's who the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is United Nations, which is still really the League of Nations. And which is what I'm going to start referring to them all the time, is as the League of Nations. Because that's who they are. They were around long before Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They're the same scumbags. And they are scumbags. Rafael Grossi is just happened to be one of the head scumbags. But these are scumbags. Let's not... Yeah, thanks, Dana. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night, great day tomorrow. I'm going to go pick up that trailer tomorrow. Anybody want to contribute, help out, now's a pretty good time. And there's 2 links in the bottom of my description, both of them directly to, one is to my PayPal, Dana Durnford's PayPal, and the other one is to my website, the Nuclear Proctologist, we've had for 10 years, never had an issue. And it's directly, just scroll down a little bit, you'll see a black link, donate button. You can donate there with any credit cards. And at the bottom of my description, you see a list of the credit cards that it'll take. It takes everything. It'll take Google Play cards, you name it. Xbox cards, you can donate with just about anything. You don't need a credit card anymore to donate to me. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. I'll have pictures of my wreck tomorrow night that I'm going to show my pension at. But it's the right thing to do. I've been looking for about a year, but that's the only thing I can afford. So I'm going to get it, clean it up, make it roadworthy. And then we'll put the other Zodiac on that with the double motors, a little 8 horsepower and a little 3.5. They're both 4-strokes, right? We bought them brand new. And we got a cabin for it to protect me. And it's dirt cheap on gas. You can go all week on 2.5 gallons. And so we can use both of the Zodiacs. Have a great day. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you're watching this later and make it this far. But it sure hurts. Take care, folks.